Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take complex research, the stuff often hidden away, and break it down into the essential knowledge you need.
And today we're diving into something really vital, but honestly, quite overlooked. The small-scale coastal fisheries, or SSF, in the Mediterranean.
We're focusing on a key piece of research here, a 2011 paper by Maynou and his colleagues, titled Fishing Tactics Dynamics of a Mediterranean Small-Scale Coastal Fishery.
That's the one. And it takes us to the port of Vilanova i la Geltrú. It's in the northwestern Med, a pretty representative Catalan port.
Right, so Villanova. Now, when you think marine industry, maybe huge ships come to mind. Why focus a whole deep dive on these, smaller boats?
Well, because they matter a lot. Historically, these small-scale fishers were, dominant for centuries.
Okay, sure, historically.
But now?
Even now. Large-scale fishing might get more economic attention lately, but SSF still make up a staggering 80% of all fishing vessels in the EU Mediterranean.
80%.
Of the actual boats.
Yeah, 80%. That translates to maybe 100,000 jobs, often in communities that really depend on them.
That's a huge number of vessels. Even if they're small, that's a significant presence.
It is. And crucially, they're known for providing high-quality seafood with generally a lower ecological impact. Think high selectivity, fewer discards.
Less damaging gear, perhaps.
Often, yes. But here's the problem, and it's what this study gets into. The authors state these fisheries are now seriously threatened.
Threatened by what? Overfishing? Competition?
Both, really. Resource decline and competition. So to figure out how to help or even manage them, we first need to understand precisely how they operate day to day, their rhythms.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Before jumping into findings, they needed a core concept. Not the whole fleet, but fishing tactics. Or was it métier?
Métier, yeah, that's the term. Think of a métier as the specific game plan for a single fishing trip.
Game plan.
Like, what gear are you using today? Where are you going? What specific fish are you hoping to catch? And importantly, what time of year is it? All those choices combine.
Right. And you mentioned these med fisheries are multi-species, multi-fleet. Sounds like they switch things up a lot.
Exactly. They're incredibly flexible. They adapt their gear, their targets, which honestly makes them super hard to study, let alone manage effectively.
That flexibility, yeah, I can see how that would be a nightmare for analysis. Just a constantly shifting picture. How did Maynou's team actually pin this down?
They went for scale and hard data. They got hold of 10 full years of daily catch and price information. This was from 2000 to 2009.
Where did they get daily data like that?
Directly from the Vilanova fish option. It's where transactions have to be recorded. And they decided to focus their analysis mainly on the netters.
The netters. Why them specifically?
Well, even though it was only about 21 vessels by 2009, that group accounted for something like 77% of all the small-scale landings in the port. So a really significant segment.
Okay, so they're using the real-world economic data, what was caught, what it's sold for, to understand the fishing behavior. Makes sense.
Precisely. And to sort through, a decade's worth of daily data points, they use some pretty sophisticated statistical methods.
The stats bit. Go on.
They used multivariate analysis, things like principal component analysis and hierarchical clustering. Don't worry too much about the names.
Okay.
Essentially, it's like advanced sorting software. It looks at the monthly catch profiles, both the weight, kilograms, and the value in euros. And it groups the fishing trips together objectively. It finds the hidden patterns, the distinct tactics.
So the computer identifies these repeatable strategies based purely on the catch data.
That's the core idea, yeah. It gives an objective basis. But, and this is important, they didn't just rely on the numbers.
Good. Did they actually talk to the fishers?
They absolutely did. They complemented all that quantitative work with interviews, talked to 14 skippers.
And what did that add?
Context. The socioeconomic side of things, it helped confirm the seasonal patterns they were seeing in the data. And crucially, it let them gather information on conflict stuff you'd never see on an auction slip.
Right. Conflicts with other fishers or boats.
Exactly. So it's that mix of big data and, human experience that really makes the study robust.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. They crunch the numbers, they talk to the skippers. What did they actually find? Did the data confirm it was just chaotic, or was there a pattern?
Oh, there was definitely structure, strong structure. They found that the Vilanova netters consistently practiced 7 clearly defined fishing tactics.
7. Okay. Were they distinct enough to name?
Yep. So distinct, they could basically name them after the main target species. You had sole, octopus, varied, cuttlefish, hake longline, red mullet, and hake gillnet.
Wow. Sole, octopus, cuttlefish, Two types of hake. It really paints a picture of their year, what kinds of gear were involved.
You could see the specialization. Trammel nets were the go-to for things like sole, cuttlefish, red mullet.
Oh.
Closer inshore, usually. Then you had set long lines and gill nets, primarily for hake. Hake tend to be a bit further out, and for octopus. Traditional clay pots.
Clay pots, interesting. And did these tactics follow a seasonal pattern? You mentioned that earlier.
Absolutely. A clear seasonal rotation.
Yeah.
It really showed how the fisher's traditional knowledge lines up with the life cycles of the fish. They know when and where the fish are.
Can you give an example of that rotation?
Sure. So tactics like cuttlefish, sole, and red mullet, they were mostly happening in the spring and summer.
Right, warmer months.
Then, as things cooled down in autumn and early winter, the focus shifted more towards hake and octopus.
And what about the varied tactic you mentioned?
That one was interesting. It seemed to catch a mix of species, none in huge volumes. It often popped up sort of transitionally, like end of winter, start of spring, maybe filling the gaps.
Okay, now for what sounds like a really crucial finding, the kind of thing that challenges assumptions. We tend to think fishers, like anyone in business, chase the money, right? If prices for sole spike, everyone goes for sole.
That's the standard economic assumption, isn't it? Rational actors maximizing profit. But the data here told a different story, a very different story.
Oh, how so?
They found the seasonal rotation, switching between these 7 tactics, was overwhelmingly driven by the availability of the fish, the biology, not the market price.
Wait, really? So they follow the fish, not the price tag?
That's what the analysis strongly suggested. The amount they caught the production was definitely linked to how much effort they put in, like the number of trips. That makes sense.
Sure, more trips, more fish.
Right, but that volume was not significantly correlated with the price being offered at the auction. Prices went up and down, but the fishers tended to stick to their seasonal plan, targeting what was abundant.
That's fascinating. So nature's calendar dictates their work more than the market signals.
Pretty much. And get this. For the octopus tactic, the relationship between price and effort was actually negative.
Negative, meaning they fished less when prices were high.
It suggests they might actually fish more when the octopus are most abundant, even if the price isn't at its peak. Perhaps they're trying to maximize their catch over the year, hitting the resource when it's there, rather than just chasing daily price spikes.
That really turns the simple economic model on its head. Did both sides play a role in which tactic they used?
It definitely did. The hake gill net tactic, for instance, that tended to be the bigger boats, maybe 11 to 14 meters long.
Why bigger for hake?
Because hake are often found further offshore. You need a slightly larger, more seaworthy vessel to go out there consistently.
Makes sense. And the smaller boats?
They were more associated with things like the octopus tactic, which happens closer to the coast. So yeah, the tactic often dictated the kind of boat you'd need, and the biology dictated the tactic.
So we have this picture of highly skilled fishers following ecological rhythms, but you also mentioned they're seriously threatened. What does this mean for their survival, economically speaking?
Well, the economic picture is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. The study showed landings in Villanova dropped dramatically, over 50% decrease between 2000 and 2009.
50% in under a decade. That's huge.
It is. Went from about 482 tons down to 230 tons. And this wasn't just a statistical blip. The fishers felt it. 93% of the skippers they interviewed said, yes, catches are down.
And this decline even killed off one of the tactics, didn't it?
That seems to be the case. The octopus tactic, using those clay pots, it was apparently quite common historically, but it basically disappeared during the 10 years they studied.
Why? Just not of octopus anymore.
That's the likely reason, yeah. Reduced abundance of the octopus itself, combined maybe with the traditional gear just not being productive enough when numbers are low, the resource couldn't sustain the tactic.
Okay, so catches are down. What about the money side? Are they actually making a living?
It's precarious. On the surface, the average net income for an owner-operator in 2008 looked okay, around $38,500, competitive with average Spanish salaries at the time.
But averages can hide a lot, can't they?
Exactly. When they factored in the opportunity cost of capital, basically, what that money tied up in the boat could have earned elsewhere, the picture changed drastically. They found that 43% of the vessels had negative net profits, almost half.
Wow. So nearly half were effectively losing money just by going fishing, once you account for everything.
Yes, and that explains a lot, doesn't it? It explains why older skippers are retiring and, crucially, why very few young people are coming into the fishery. There's just no clear economic future for many of them.
And on top of the declining catches and poor economics, there's conflict, too. What did the interviews reveal about that?
Conflict was a major theme. About 60 to 70% of the skippers reported conflicts.
Conflicts with who? Each other.
Mostly with other groups. They feel squeezed. On one side, you have the large-scale commercial fleets, trawlers and the like, which they say often encroach on their fishing grounds.
Right. Competition for space and resources.
And on the other side, there's been a big increase in recreational fishing. People fishing for fun, but often targeting the same valuable coastal species. So yeah, it's pressure from multiple directions on a shrinking resource base.
It sounds incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
But despite these difficulties, the study itself seems like a win for marine science.
Right.
You said these tactics aren't unique to Villanova.
That's a really important scientific takeaway, yes.
Yeah.
They found that 5 of the 7 tactics they identified in Villanova are actually common across other small-scale fisheries in the Mediterranean.
Like where?
Places like Greece, Italy, other parts of Spain, they see similar patterns, similar métier.
Why is that significant?
Because it challenges this long-held idea that small-scale fisheries are just too diverse, too localized, too messy to characterize properly. This study shows there's underlying commonality, a shared structure.
So it provides a kind of blueprint, a way to understand and compare these fisheries across different regions.
Exactly. It gives managers a vocabulary, a set of defined units, the métier, to work with. Instead of trying to manage a diverse fleet with one blunt rule, you can start thinking about managing the effort directed at specific species through specific tactics.
Which could be much more effective.
Potentially, yes. And it also helps confirm their environmental reputation. Remember the hake gillnet tactic?
Uh-huh. The one the bigger boats did.
Right. The study found it was 84% selective for hake. That's very targeted. It backs up the claim that many SSF methods have a relatively low ecological impact, especially compared to less selective industrial gears.
Okay, so the situation is complex. Ecologically valuable, culturally important, but economically struggling and facing decline. Given this bleak future, as the paper suggests, what solutions do the authors point towards?
They argue pretty strongly for a shift in management approach, away from just focusing on the fishing activity itself.
Towards what?
Towards integrated management of the entire coastal zone. Plans that explicitly deal with the competition, issues, the conflicts with large-scale fleets, with recreational fishing. You have to manage the whole space, not just the SSF boats in isolation.
And they also suggest promoting the advantages of SSF.
Absolutely. Lean into what makes them valuable. High selectivity, low discards, less damage to the seabed. Find ways to translate that into market value.
Like eco-labeling.
Exactly. Eco-labeling is one potential tool. If consumers value sustainability, help them identify and reward the fishers who provide it. Turn that environmental positive into an economic one.
But there's a catch, isn't there? Their own flexibility makes them hard to pin down.
That's the inherent challenge, yes. Small-scale fishers survive because they are adaptable. They can switch métier relatively easily based on fish availability or regulations.
So if you restrict, say, the sole tactic.
They don't necessarily stop fishing. They might just shift that effort onto cuttlefish or red mullet or whatever else is available, which could just move the pressure onto another species.
Right. You squeeze the balloon here, and it bulges out over there.
Kind of, yeah. So future management needs to be smart about that. It can't just be about restrictions.
What then?
It has to find ways to reduce the overall pressure on the fish stocks while also making it economically viable for fishers to stay in the business, perhaps doing this low-impact work.
How? Diversification, maybe. Subsidies.
Those are possibilities the authors touch on, maybe supporting diversification into other marine activities or linking financial support directly to demonstrable sustainable practices. The core idea, really, is that paradigm shift. Manage the specific tactic, not just the general fleet.
That distinction feels really key. Managing the tactic, not the fleet.
It focuses the management effort where it matters on the actual interaction between a specific gear, a target species, and the environment.
So perhaps the next time you're at a fish market and you see some really high-quality local fish, pause for a second.
Yeah, think about the complex story behind it.
Think about that fisher, whose daily work is guided more by the ancient rhythms of the sea's biology than by the daily stock market price. Think about the tradition, but also the immense pressure they're under.
It's a system driven by nature, facing economic hardship, and desperately in need of intelligent, integrated support. A real balancing act.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.